Sisterhood Sunday, your safe space. It is a space for Black women to be heard, to be healed, and to be empowered. Um, to come together in community for resources, for support, and anything that you need. And so, with that being said, I'm your host, Mika Davis. We meet virtually every single month, and then every quarter we meet in person. And so, my goal this year, my assignment, my conviction is to bring women of or other organizations together to create this giant cohort where we're coming together because right now in this season, um, like none other. It's time to come into community and support and bringing us together because no, it's not my members or your members. It's all of us coming together because in this season, there may be a woman that needs this organization that focuses on politics. This season, it may be I need to be a part of an organization who focuses on health or children or aging loved ones. And so, if you are seeing this, we are looking for these organizations for us to join together so that we can create an even bigger platform of support. And with that being said, I'm going to introduce Miss Lauren DK, who is a somatic practitioner. She'll break that down and what it means, and talk about how do we release this stress and how do we regulate our nervous system. And so, with that being said, everyone put your virtual hands together and welcome Miss Lauren.
Thanks, Mika. Hey, y'all. So happy to be here. So, as Mika mentioned, I'm a somatic practitioner, which means I help people take a body-based approach to stress. So, soma is a Greek word that means of the body. And so, I'm going to go into it a little bit later, but by utilizing the body, you can actually release stress that builds up in the body and also discharge trauma. And so, just a little bit of my background, what brought me to this work was probably my own trauma response, right? I spent 12 years in corporate America in real estate finance, and I was often the only Black woman in the room. And I went through a lot of what we call attributional ambiguity. So it's like, am I being treated this way because I'm a Black woman or because of who I am, right? And it was always this cognitive dissonance of like, is this a microaggression? Is it not? And that those sort of mental gymnastics wore on me. And I was actually laid off on Juneteenth of 2020. And it was sort of like the universe's knock on my head of, okay, you need to do something to make workplaces better, right? And that you're actually passionate about. And so that led me to diversity, equity, inclusion work. And I was a consultant for a good 4 years and I enjoyed the work. But as I was doing that work, I was getting more burnt out than I was in corporate America because of the urgency that the clients needed us, right? But also there was an emotional aspect because I was in organizations being led by either Black women or members of the LGBTQ plus community, and we weren't practicing what we preached. And it hurt that much more, right? Because of capitalism, the way that our organizations were run internally, it was a testament to how much healing is important and not succumbing to capitalistic ways are important. And so that led me to this nervous system work. And so I'm super excited to share with y'all why it's so important to take a body-based approach to stress, especially for Black women. I took some notes of some of the challenges y'all are taking. And, it seems like there's a theme of a nervous system response called fawning, right? When we reflexively try to appease others as a way to achieve safety. And so when that happens, it can be very hard to say no. It gets very easy to get enmeshed with others, right? Because we're so used to externally facing and externally trying to appease others as Black women, right? Because sometimes our identity could be a threat. So it's like the code switching, being scared to say no, right? But that's actually a response of the nervous system that's often happening on a subconscious basis that we're going to go over. And then I think again, um, n- knowing when to let go and sort of listening to the body's wisdom. So it's interesting because we're born into this world, right? As babies, we figure out the world through touch and all of our five senses, feeling our mother's wombs, putting things into our mouth, crawling, right? And we know when we don't want things, right? Wiggling out of our parents' arms, right? Crying when it feels appropriate. But As we get older, we kind of lose touch with those natural organic needs of the body. And it's because of that chronic stress and trauma. And so when we can heal that, we get more attuned to our body's wisdom and what we need. So super excited to get into this with y'all. And I'm just going to share my screen. So first, I want to just touch on what you may have tried and why it may be falling short. And so for me, I can always describe I was diagnosed with anxiety-induced depression. And I always used to say, okay, I feel like I'm an expert at all my problems, right? But there's this like energy I can't get rid of. And there's a reason why. So first, I'm going to tell you why doing these things might not be a complete solution to your anxiety and or depression. And I want to make a note that this is educational advice only, not medical advice. And I'm an advocate for all of these things, right? But I think it's all of these things plus taking a body-based approach that can make them more effective. And so when we go to talk therapy for things like anxiety, Western culture kind of treats us like we're all heads on a stick, right? You have to think your way out of things. But anxiety is a stress response of the body, right? The body does not feel safe. And so you can't talk your way out of anxiety because if you're talking, right, and you make some mental shifts, or you're talking with your therapist and you feel better in the moment, as soon as you leave, right, those problems are going to come up again because you haven't addressed the root cause, which is your body not feeling safe and being stuck in a chronic stress or trauma response. And so if you can take a body-based approach, right, and start to release the stress from your body, therapy becomes that much more effective, right? Um, Meditation. So I'm actually a neuroscience-based meditation facilitator. I love meditation, but for a lot of people, it's often step two or three. Because if your nervous system is really dysregulated, meaning it is constantly activated even in the absence of stress, it's hard to sit still, right? And meditation can almost trigger psychosis and PTSD for some people. And so, again, regulating the nervous system, taking a body-based approach is going to be more effective and actually safer for people that have PTSD if you want to be able to engage at all in meditation. When we talk about exercise, it's recommended to get at least 10 minutes of exercise a day to have a balanced, regulated nervous system. It's great. But sometimes if you're doing something like high intensity exercise, right, that can further stress your body. It's also a band-aid because, for example, if you're feeling anxious, you're like, let me just go for a run or a brisk walk, right? Again, it's going to lessen the charge of what you're feeling, all the sensations that you're feeling. It's going to make you feel good for that 10 to 20 minutes. But after a while, it's going to come back because you haven't addressed the root cause of why you're going to this stress response so easily as a knee-jerk reaction. And then medication. Medication is great. I advocate for medication, right? But when you're dealing with anxiety, it often numbs you. And so again, it's lessening the charge of those sensations that you're feeling on a physiological level, but it's not getting the root to why you actually have anxiety. Same with depression. Depression is a large part of the people that are depressed, it's a nervous system response, right? Depression happens when you have low serotonin levels. Doctors aren't testing for serotonin levels unless people have brain tumors. So a lot of the times people have really bad nervous system dysregulation that is putting their nervous system into what we call shutdown, which has the same exact symptoms as depression. And doctors are just throwing medication at people because they're like, they don't test for serotonin, they just assume it's depression. And so, again, a lot of people that start this body-based work can either titrate down on their medication or come off of it completely because they've addressed the root cause of their issues. So, why taking a body-based approach to stress is important? So, we talk about the nervous system, right? We have the same nervous systems as animals out in the wild, as our ancestors from way, way long ago. And so back in the day, we had real physical danger in place, right? Getting chased down by tigers, being out in the elements. And so our nervous systems are designed to do two different things, either mobilize us to get away from threats or immobilize us to shut down, play dead, and or if we're immobilized in a state of safety, it's just being calm, right? Not moving at all, stillness. And so when our nervous system wants to mobilize us, when it senses a threat, all of these neurochemicals are going through our body, right? Adrenaline, cortisol, as an attempt to get us to move away from our threat. And so when we try to move away from a threat, and that is either not working or we're in that state for too long, our body will then go into shutdown to conserve energy, right? It's a very sophisticated state of the body. And so you can see how some people get diagnosed with anxiety-induced depression, right? You're spending so much time in fight or flight or anxiety, and eventually your body's like, I can't keep on doing this. I need to shut down and rest, right? None of these responses are bad. Again, they're survival responses, right? Like we want to have those automatic responses in place. When it gets bad is when we get stuck in those states for too long because of either trauma or chronic stressors that don't stop. And so a lot of this work is teaching your body how to shift out of those stressful states more automatically because it's almost forgotten how to because it's been in survival mode for so long. And so basically the slide is showing like now instead of being chased down by a tiger, we have deadlines, right? Nasty emails, fights with our significant others. And so our body reacts the same way to those stressors as it would be getting chased down by a tiger. It wants us to mobilize, except we're sitting at our desks or we're driving in our cars. And so all of that energy that wants to be released is getting stuck in our body. That is the stress that gets released from the body, right? And so when we go through trauma, what is different between trauma and chronic stress is that with chronic stress, you can potentially bounce out of those states, right? Because your brain essentially timestamps, this was a stressful event. I know the context to this. I can move on. I don't have to sense it as a threat ever again, right? When you go through trauma, your hippocampus, which typically timestamps the traumatic event, flips off and you're just left with your amygdala or the alarm center of your brain. And so literally you have no context to that traumatic event. And so then from that point forward, you're constantly bracing for what's next. It's almost like living in a haunted house because you have not taught your body that it's okay. That was a one-time event, right? I don't have to be scared. And that's a response that happens on a physiological level. When you go through trauma, there's actually a postural change that happens in your body. There's bracing, there's lifting of the shoulders, right? And so this somatic work is literally like healing is a postural change of release. And so I mentioned you can't talk your way out of anxiety or depression, right? Because the body does not understand words or language. And this can probably be tracked back to primitive times, right? We didn't have words, we just used touch and movement. And so the language of the body is what we call neuroception, or using all five of our senses to sense internal and external danger. And this is all happening again at a subcortical or subconscious level, right? It's subconscious. And so this is what the language of the body is, right? It's breath, it's movement, connection to others, but also can be to a pet, to self, to nature, to a higher source, sensory input, so things like music, but also nourishing foods, things you put into your body, and then things like temperature and touch. And so again, safety is sensed at a subconscious level, which is super important to understand in this work. So I always like to show this diagram because part of that buildup, right, of the stress in the body is allostasis. Black women have, and allostasis is basically our baseline stress levels, right? Allostatic load. Black women have the highest allostatic load of any other demographic in the United States. And if you look up weathering hypothesis, it'll tell you all about it, right? On average, we're living 3 years shorter than white women. It's creating stress-related health disparities, and it's because of this buildup of stress in our body. And the way that allostasis builds up in the body, or allostatic load builds up in the body, is depicted in this diagram, okay? So basically, we are all born with this baseline of stress, right? And I shouldn't say born with because sometimes you have intergenerational trauma and all of that. Ideally, our body wants to have a baseline stress that's quite low, and this represents our homeostasis. And so when we go through a stressful event, ideally we completely recover and return back to our original stress baseline. And this is actually the stress sequence of animals out in the wild, right? If they go through a stressful event and survive, they will excessively shake. So they take off all of that stress energy, right? Otherwise, they'll be rejected from their packs. We used to do this back in the day, but somehow through evolution, it was kind of like inappropriate to do. I think with capitalism, maybe people just didn't have time to do it. And so this is what's happening in modern day life with a lot of people going through chronic stress or trauma. We encounter a stressful event, so say like getting in a fight with a significant other, and then we don't quite recover. And then we have another chronic event, which is like sitting in traffic or getting a microaggression, right? And then we don't completely recover. And then another stressor comes, right? And so all of these stressful events that we go through and don't recover from literally alters our stress baseline. And this is what high allostatic load is. And so, again, this is happening on a physiological level, not on a mental level. So that's why to heal from this, you have to take a body-based approach to stress. And so I spoke about nervous system dysregulation, which is, again, the nervous system being constantly activated, even in the absence of physical danger. And a lot of this work is teaching your body the difference between emotional overwhelm and physical danger. Because remember, our bodies are responding to a nasty email the same way it would be getting chased down by a tiger, right? It's kind of an inappropriate response. And so we want to be able to regulate our body in those moments and say, okay, I'm physically safe. This is annoying. This is overwhelming, but I'm not in physical danger. And so a good way to sort of look at how dysregulation happens is this water bucket analogy, right? And so again, our bodies are the bucket, and we have this baseline level of water or stress. And during the day, droplets of stress get put into our buckets. So it might be not getting enough sleep, again, a microaggression, working long hours, poor diet, being misgendered for some people, right? Getting in a fight with a loved one. And if we don't regulate, right, or release the water, what happens is anxiety and burnout, depression, emotional outbursts, chronic stress. And so regulation is almost like putting a spout on the bucket and draining out some of the water each day. And a lot of my workshops or webinars, some Black women are like, okay, so if we are living with pervasive stressors like racism, right, and sexism, how do we ever recover from stress? And the truth of the matter is, we can greatly change our emotional well-being by changing at least one of three things. And it's our environment, it's our physiological response to stress, or the way our body responds to stress, and our perspective on stress. And so I always say, we can't, and let me go back, we can't always control the droplets going into our buckets, right? Our environment, but we can control the way we recover or draining some of the water and also our perspective on stress, which happens when you start to heal from trauma. Because literally, when you go through trauma, there's a trauma lens, right? Remember, your body, there's a postural change, everything you're scared of, everything you're hyper vigilant about. And so, by healing from trauma, and taking a physiological, body-based approach to stress, you can greatly control your emotional well-being, even though you can't control your physical environment. So when our nervous systems are dysregulated, it controls all aspects of our life, right? The brain chemistry of our brain changes, the way we think changes. In fact, when our nervous system is dysregulated, I always like to show this hand analogy. So if you think about I'm showing my hand right now. Okay. So if you think about your hand as your brain, right, and your arm as your nervous system, everything is working perfectly together to make you function at your best, right? And so if we think about the different parts of the brain, we have the most reptilian, primitive part of our brain, right? We have our amygdala, which is the alarm center of our brain. And then we have our neocortex, which is like responsible for focus, productivity, being our highest self, accessing our highest intelligence. Again, they all work together to keep us in homeostasis. When our nervous system, right, the arm, is stressed and dysregulated, our amygdala goes offline. And so you can see when our amygdala flips up, the most rational part of our brain flips up. And then we're just left with our over emotional, most primitive reptilian part of our brain. And so when we're walking around like this, right, we're not accessing our highest intelligence. So when our nervous system is dysregulated, right, that's when we have the thought loops, the um, self-doubt, right? All of that thinking is survival-based thinking. And so if you can regulate your nervous system, you then bring back online the part of the brain that you need to be your best self, and everything can kind of change, right? And so when we're dysregulated, it affects everything from our physical and mental health, our career goals, our relationships. I always say I probably haven't gotten sick in the last 2 years, probably because I've really focused on my nervous system health. Nervous system dysregulation also lowers your immunity. Like white blood cells actually lower, which affects your ability to fight off sickness and illness. And so it really is a holistic approach to your health, whether it's mind, body, and spirit. So if you struggle with these type of things, right? Saying no without guilt, relaxing without feeling restless, um, replaying conversations in your head, letting go to your need to prove yourself at work and relationships. It's not a mindset problem, it's a nervous system problem, right? You're stuck in a chronic state of stress and it's affecting the way you're thinking and also interacting with others. So, how regulation works. So remember I said when the nervous system feels safe, our body automatically distresses. And to allow the nervous system to feel safe, we need to use the language of the body, which is either touch, movement, sensory input, or breath. And taking a body-based approach is 4 times more effective than taking a mind-based approach. And the why is because the nervous system, not the nervous system, the vagus nerve that runs from our cranial stem all the way down through our belly is the communication superhighway between our brain and our body and our body and our brain. But 80% of the communication is afferent, which means it runs up from the body to the brain. And so when we're doing this somatic work, right, working with the body, we're addressing that 80% response. And then what's really cool is that every time that you regulate using the body, right, you actually form new neural pathways and new neuroplasticity, and your body learns like, oh, I can shift to this state, right? And it starts to do it more automatically over time. And so it's really, really powerful. Some people ask, what's the average time it takes to regulate the nervous system? On average, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to see a difference. But for some people, it can take years. But the really cool thing about it is each time you do it, again, you're building new neuroplasticity to teach your body how to do it more automatically. And so you start to see results pretty soon. So I always say part of this work, it's educational and it's experiential. And so I do want to take y'all through a little sequence so you can kind of see the shift that happens physiologically when you use a body-based approach. And so it's good that all of your cameras are off because some people just like more privacy when doing this. So I'm going to lead us through something and then we can address questions. So let's just all get situated. I like to always orient people to our physical space because sometimes you're worrying about like what happened earlier today or what you have to do after this. Let's just get into this space now. And so if you want to just like lean back in your chair, both feet flat on the ground, and see if you can just let go of your body and feel the support of your chair. For a lot of us, like actually feeling support can be impossible. Like, do you notice if you're clenching anything? Is your stomach clenched? Are your glutes clenched? Are your shoulders raised? See where you can soften and just fully feel the support of your chair. And maybe take a deep breath in through the nose, exhaling out of the mouth, just letting go, and just checking in with your body. And for some of you, actually feeling the support of your chair might not be achievable today, and that's okay. Maybe just witness that and notice. Like that's the first step, noticing that I can't even feel the support of the chair underneath me. And then I'm going to ask you to just look around your room Like literally just look from left to right and just orient yourself to your physical space. This is a great practice to sense safety, right? I am not in physical danger. My body is safe right now. And for some of you, it might help to like almost create like a square. So you're just focusing on what's in front of you and just move really, really slow as you can. And again, just orient yourself to your physical space. And as you're doing that, maybe see what changes in your body. Like, does it soften a little bit? And if not, that's okay. Good. Okay. Now we're going to do something called eye presses. So you're going to take the palms of your hands, place them over your eyes, apply some pressure, and then you're going to breathe in through your nose, inhale through your nose, and exhale through your nose. It's going to look like this. And what this is doing is it's creating kind of like a blackout effect for your eyes. So it's allowing your eyes to just really relax and calm down your nervous system. And then the inhaling and exhaling through the mouth is allowing you to get that deep belly breath that's going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system or your rest and digest. That's the branch of the nervous system you want to be activated in order to calm down. Just take a couple breaths. And again, just noticing where you can soften. Is anything still tight or clenched? If you can soften that. And just taking your time here. For some of you, it might be difficult to relax because you have a lot of what we call that sympathetic or fight or flight energy running through you. If so, try like pressing your feet into the ground to ground. Maybe try vocalizing. So, like a that helps to sort of mobilize that anxious energy that might be hard to get through when you're starting this work. Good. And so the next movement we're going to do is butterfly tapping. So you're going to cross your arms across your chest, a hand on either side of your chest, and you're just going to tap like this. And you can keep your eyes open or closed, look at the tip of your nose. And what this is doing is it's activating touch receptors to signify to your brain that you are safe. But also, this bilateral tapping is engaging different hemispheres in your brain to help with emotional processing and to help you relax. So this is great to do when you feel overwhelmed. And you might notice like a sigh or a yawn. Those are all signs that your nervous system is relaxing and regulating. Good. Taking deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good. Okay. And now this next movement, we're going to work with the spine. Because a lot of times, again, when we are in those anxious states, we go to dorsal vagal, which is a little shutdown, disassociation. It looks like depression, and energy has slowed down and started to immobilize in the body. And so, by mobilizing energy really gently, right, we start to return back to homeostasis. And so, a great way to mobilize energy is to work with the spine. And so, if you just want to rock side to side, alternating on your sits bones. You start to just gently work with the spine and move the spine. And if you want, you can make it almost like wavy. So creating a wave from the base of your spine to the middle of your spine to your neck. And by doing this, you're just gently mobilizing that energy. And if you want, you can almost make like a circle, put your hands on your knees and create a circle as much as you can just move it and focus on length and movement of the spine. If you go in one direction, then you can switch and go to the next. Good. A few more seconds. Okay. Okay. So now that we have mobilized some energy, right, we're coming out of this state of shutdown. This excess energy might come up, right? Because we have gone from fight or flight to shutdown, we have to come out of shutdown going through fight or flight. It's almost like going up and down a ladder. And so this is good for if you have anxiety, right? You might feel like this frenetic energy that needs to be released. These movements are going to help with that. And so again, we're going to work with the spine because we can work with it to gently mobilize energy and also discharge energy. So you're going to goalpost your arms and you're going to touch your pointer finger to your thumbs. This is thought to balance the meridians or the energy centers of your body. And you're just going to twist, inhaling through the nose, exhaling out of the mouth. And this is a good way to listen to your body. Go as fast or as slow as you need with the goal of just discharging some of that energy that might not be serving you. Good. You might hear some cracks in there. It's okay. That's part of the release. Remembering to inhale and exhale, making sure that your shoulders aren't tense, your belly isn't tense, seeing where you can soften. And then you're going to gently gradually bring it to a close. Don't stop right away. And you're going to keep your arms goal posted. And now we're going to do tree shaking. So you're literally going to shake up like you're shedding leaves like a tree. And if you want, you can bring it down. And again, you're releasing this energy that doesn't serve you. And remember how I said animals in the wild, right? They excessively shake or else they'll be rejected from their packs, right? When they face an anxious event. This is what this is doing. It's like getting rid of that energy, that anxious energy. And if you want to get your knees in there, you can almost like knock your knees together so it can be full body. Good. About 30 more seconds. Okay, and then get gradually bring it to a close. And just check in with the body. Notice if anything shifted with your energy. If nothing shifted at all, that's an observation. Trust you're building new neural pathways to teach your body how to do this. We're just going to do two more movements before we bring this to a close. So we've mobilized energy, we've discharged energy, and now we're just going to break up any excess energy that might be stuck in the body. And so a great way to do this is through body tapping. And so you're going to take both of your fists and just start tapping anywhere in your body that feels good. Another way to just listen to your body's wisdom. Where do you need this? And the little pressure goes a long way. If you want to get your fingertips in it for your head, so it's a little softer. If it feels safe to go below the waist, you can get your legs into it. Making sure to get the palms of your hands too. Good. Okay. And you can bring this gently to a close. And so now that we've released any excess energy, broken up any excess energy, some of you might feel more in your body now. And now is when you can ground, right? Now that you can feel your body, you're not disassociated from it, you can feel it so that you can actually ground. And so a great way to do this is with breath work. And so I like to do various things, but we can do box breathing. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this. You're going to inhale for a count of four, hold for a count of four, exhale for a count of four, and then hold for a count of four. And we'll do some rounds of that. So starting when I count, you're going to inhale through your nose for a count of four, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Exhale, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Inhaling, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Exhale, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Inhaling, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Exhale, three, two, one. Hold, three, two, one. Good. Inhaling, hold, exhale, hold, inhaling, hold, exhale, hold. One more round. Inhaling, hold, exhale, hold. Good. Just returning your breath back to its normal cadence. And again, maybe just shut your eyes, just do a check-in with your body and just notice any shifts in energy, any sensations. For some of you, you might still feel a little anxious because you kind of brought up some suppressed energy. And if that's the case, maybe try some body tapping or doing a little bit more shaking. And again, if you feel no change at all, that is okay. When we're super shut down and dysregulated, it takes time to come out of this. But again, trust that this process that you're teaching your body, that it can shift states, right? That there can be a different way of feeling. And whenever you're ready, I think we're going to take time for some questions. Thanks, Mary. Yeah, maybe put in the chat how you're, if you feel comfortable, maybe how you're feeling. And there's no wrong answer. If you're like, I don't feel anything at all, that's okay. Maybe someone else doesn't feel anything at all. I like butterfly tapping. Yes. Relaxed. Good. And what's really cool about this is it's super accessible. I think someone asked, like, I don't know how to this self-care. If you were to just do one of these movements for 3 minutes a day, you can make a 50% deduct reduction in your stress levels. It just takes consistency and time, right? Because it's about teaching your body how to shift into these nervous system states. If you're going to yoga or taking a bubble bath, it's helpful, right? But it's not healing your nervous system. It's not teaching your nervous system how to shift. Tree shaking, I like that. And I think just a couple of different points I want to bring up. So regulation is essential. It's the groundwork to healing your nervous system. It lessens the charge of those survival instincts you're feeling, right? And it also teaches your nervous system that flexibility to shift out. But again, true healing is getting to the root of why you're going to these stress responses so quickly. And so the second step of this is what we call emotional processing. And this is about now that you've created safety within your body, your body is a safe place to access, and what we can access are the sensations that are driving these stress responses. Because remember, we're feeling the same sensations when we're getting triggered by an email or traffic than we would being chased down by a tiger. And those sensations started at some point, probably in childhood. So a lot of this work is like feeling those sensations, digging into why you're feeling them, and then starting to heal and reconcile the subconscious and conscious relation to those. And then what happens is the sensations don't go away, but you start to build this capacity to hold them and relate to them in a different way. That is when true healing happens. But first, you have to regulate and create safety in the body because for a lot of us, the body, those sensations, they don't feel safe to access. They're very overwhelming. And so regulation is always the first step. I'm just reading the chat here. That's nice and different. Do you have any tapping techniques for the face that help release stress? So there is emotional freedom tapping. I am not certified in that, but what is really cool is acupressure. And so acupressure is a great way to, again, to mobilize energy. And so there's different points within your face. And so I like to do the crown of the head. So if you locate the tops of your ears and trace up, that's the crown of your head. And you can just apply pressure there. And you can also do in between your eyebrows. That's another point. And then also if you locate your earlobes and trace in, you'll feel like a divot there. And so just like focusing at each of those points for like 30 seconds, that's a great way to use the face to release stress. So these are somatic exercises. So I'm sure if you like YouTube it, you can locate it. I actually have a free ebook on my website. Let me put it down. And it's created for professional Black women. And so I actually taped a whole bunch of them because what's also important to note about these exercises is you have to know what nervous system state you're in to get out of them. So for example, tree shaking, if you're feeling shut down and depressed, doing tree shaking right away is not going to be effective for you. It's going to be overwhelming because you notice that we went through a certain sequence, right? I assumed first we were at shut down and then we worked our way up to fight or flight. You have to know what movement to do. And so in that free ebook, I break it down.
I have a question. I'm not afraid to ask questions. My question is, there are a lot of times when I am driving in the car and anxiety will hit me really hard. So if you are driving or if you're at an event or in a room full of people, what do you suggest we do when we have those moments of uh anxiousness?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the breath is really powerful when you're driving. And so, again, you want to discharge. So, the box breathing wouldn't be good because you wouldn't be in a state to be grounded. But literally, I like espresso breaths. So, it's kind of like the breaths you take when you're going into labor. It's inhaling through the mouth and exhaling through the mouth at the count of two. So, it looks like this. I'm sorry, it's a nose. And it's a great way to just like release that pent up energy. And then if you're not driving, the tree shaking, the spinal twists, And then grounding after that are a great way to release that anxious energy. Because again, your nervous system needs to discharge or mobilize away from the threat. And so you want to move and you want to move fast and briskly.
But if we're in a room full of people, we need to run to the bathroom to do these
Oh, yeah, I
things.
would go to the bathroom. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a shame that in society it's not like appropriate to do these things that our body needs, but yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Because I do want to go back. I have some questions on the slide you had, and a lot of people commented on it. But does anybody else have any questions while we're here?
Yes. Can we talk about some of the effects on our health that are holding in the stress, dealing with anxiety? What does that look like? I know it can be a wide range of issues that can be caused from those things, but can you just kind of touch on that a little bit? I know you're just giving us some advice and not medical advice, but can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So nervous system dysregulation, as I mentioned, it's like a total body effect, right? And so when we think about when our body wants to mobilize, the body sends resources from our digestion to our limbs, to our external extremities, so we can run away, right? And so you might have digestion issues and in turn immunity issues because a good gut, right? Good gut health means good immunity. And then you might also have muscle tension because again, when we're bracing from trauma, everything's bracing. That tenseness eventuates into chronic pain issues. And then mental health challenges, right? Um, Literally being in survival mode, you're in survival-based thinking, you're only working with your amygdala and the primitive part of your brain. And so those thought loops, right? Low attention span, um, self-doubt, self-criticism, those type of things happen when we're dysregulated, and then general fatigue because your body's working in overtime. And so that's just a high level glimpse. It's really most things can probably be attributed to nervous system dysregulation because the nervous system has such a great effect on every aspect of our health. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
So with that question, Lauren, um, are there certain vitamins to take to be able to help regulate? Because sometimes even doing some of these practices may not work. Like you said, it takes time.
Mhm.
Are there certain vitamins, or do you recommend we see a doctor, right, and do a blood test to see what we may be missing? Um, After my mom passed, I would say maybe a year later, I had all this going on in my body, and I went to go see, I have a holistic doctor. And so she ran blood work on me, and I just knew something was going to come back, that something major was wrong. And she was like, "You are vitamin K and vitamin D deficient."
Mm.
And I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, that's it. Like, I just knew it was something huge. But just that little simple thing had my body um, doing different things, and it was just missing um, or deficient in certain
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'd always recommend getting blood work done and checking with a doctor. I think a lot of Black women actually are deficient in vitamin D, so it's a very important supplement to take and a quality version of vitamin D. I'm a big advocate of supplementing through or getting your nutrition through diet, right? So eating very balanced meals. But if you can, I think definitely taking vitamin D. Vitamin B6 and B12 are very good when you're going through stress because it actually helps to like synthesize your serotonin and dopamine. Um, what's another one? I think a really good supplement to take is creatine. Again, get blood work done because you don't want to take these if you're like deficient or you have too much of it in your body already. But creatine actually helps with cognitive functioning and decline that's usually done caused by stress. So that's a good one. And then I
When you
think
said creatine, that's with a C or a K?
a C, Creatine. as like a powdery supplement, or you can, I think now they have like gummy forms of it. Um,
And you said B12, B6.
B12, B6, vitamin D, vitamin C, obviously, because you want to protect your immune system, and usually it's low when you're dysregulated. Um, and then from a nutrition standpoint, beans. So believe it or not, any type of bean, if you can have at least like a cup a day, it's good at balancing your blood sugar and helping with your stress response. Because a lot of what people don't talk about is food can be stressful or it can like de-stress you, right? And a bean is a good distressor. Also, cruciferous vegetables, those are really good. And then bitters. And so if you go to like the farmer's market or the health food store, they have different like tinctures of bitters. Those are really good to turn on your parasympathetic or rest and digest, and can help to heal you. Because again, as you mentioned, movement is not the only part of it. It's a lifestyle change. It's like getting enough sleep, being hydrated, fueling yourself the right way, having proper social connections. So it's a holistic process to heal.
Any other questions? Okay, so I want to go back to the slide where you were mentioning it talked about
You want me to put it
being
up?
uncomfortable saying no, that particular
Mm,
slide.
yes. This one?
Yes. So, I was honest enough to raise my hand and say I suffer with every last one of those.
Mm,
And so how or what can we do to work through some of these? Like even when I try to relax, I feel restless. Like I'll consider myself relaxing by playing a game on my phone. So
mhm.
can we speak to this particular slide?
Yeah. So I think I'm always going to say regulation and creating safety with the body is the first step, right? Because a lot of the times our bodies know what it wants, right? Like even like if you're saying yes when you really want to say no, there's usually like a little like sensation you feel, right? And you just ignore it. And it's because it's too overwhelming to feel. And so when you can start to regulate and create safety, right, it becomes safer to feel those sensations that are telling you what you really need. So I'm always going to advocate for safety and regulation, having a balanced diet, getting good sleep, all of those like core pillars of nervous system health. But then also moving slower is really helpful as well because when we move fast, again, we ignore those sensations of the body that are speaking to us and telling us that we're over what we call our capacity, right? When you want to say no and say yes, it means you're operating above your capacity and what your body truly wants and needs to feel safe in this moment. And sometimes it's like if you're saying yes to working out and what am I trying to say? You're saying, yeah, you're making yourself work out and you really don't want to, right? It can seem like you're being healthy and you want to push over your capacity, but what happens is that's a stressful response. And so stress responses aren't sustainable. So the best thing you can always do is just to honor your body, right? Allow it to feel safe. And then some of the things that you're saying, yes to when you really mean no become yeses because you feel safe in doing it. A lot of the times we call it self-sabotage when we don't stick with diets, but what's happening is your nervous system doesn't feel safe to make those changes. You force yourself, it's not sustainable because it's a survival state, and then you go back and revert to your old diet. The best thing you can do is to move slowly and create safety in making those changes, but it involves regulation, right? But also investigating why is this thing scary, right? Why is my body resisting it? And so I always just tell people move as slowly as you can. Even if someone's asking you to do something, say like, can I get back to you, right? Or maybe just creating like physical space. That alone can help your body honor its capacity.
This is so good. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know if you needed this, but I needed this. So essentially, the screen you just showed, when we're
Mhm.
feeling any of those things, it is because we, one, don't feel safe, and our nervous system is out of whack. And so
Yeah.
once we regulate the nervous system, then the things on the list we'll see begin to dissipate. Did I
Yes.
read that right?
Yes. And I mean, there's another step of emotional processing that I haven't mentioned, but regulation is the key foundational step. Um, I think it's also important to know that for Black women specifically, fawning, so people pleasing, not respecting our boundaries, right? It's often ingrained in us intergenerationally, right? Because if our ancestors were slaves, our survival depended on fawning and people pleasing, right? And then our parents learned, we probably watched our parents do the same thing because they were living in a different generation. And so, again, a lot of this stuff is automatic, it's reflexive. And so, to undo that, right, it takes bridging the conscious and subconscious and realizing what we're doing and bringing awareness. But again, you can only access that if your body is a safe place to go. And so, again, I'm always going to say the safety and regulation is first. But then there's deeper work that's needed with a practitioner. That's where someone like me would come in, or a therapist trained in somatic work, so that you can dig into those sensations and what they mean. Even me till this day, I can't do that work on myself. I have a somatic practitioner I go to. But regulation and safety, again, I'm always going to just preach it's the first step.
Thank you. Somebody says, does massage have some of the same effects as the body work?
Yes. So massage is touch, right? It's one of the languages of the body. And what's really cool is if, like, for example, I showed you the acupressure. That's like a form of massage, right? And so if you can target certain areas, there's certain areas in the body that tense specifically because of trauma, like the psoas muscles, the shoulders. And so if you can focus on those areas, it can actually help release trauma from the body as well. I'm not a massage therapist, but I know that some are that specialize in that work. But again, it's a band-aid similar to regulation work, right? If you're not addressing you going to those responses and tensing, then it's just going to return, but it can provide you relief and safety in the moment.
This was so good. Thank you so very much, Lauren. Do we have any more questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace, or hold it until you can contact Lauren. Lauren, can you put your contact information inside of the
Yes.
chat if you want to bring Lauren to speak or hire her as your somatic practitioner? She's going to put her information in the chat. Um, but I'm going to yield the floor. Do we have any more questions?